All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a fifth edition of the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight. This time, I have the first time ever family I'm showcasing and highlighting. A great family indeed. I have Faisal Abraham, Tajama Abraham, and Nsilo Abraham. And that's not all the Abrahams. That's just these three. Well, these, in my humble opinion, is one of the best families to ever come out of 757 during the golden era of the Penninsula District when sports, basketball, football, and track was on the rise back when Channel 5, now 46 and 48, began to pick up and record games. I felt like it was essential to highlight your careers. I remember seeing you guys play, Faisal, seeing you play with those great Kecoughtan teams. Taj, seeing you play. We're going to talk about you and the girls' basketball dynasties that were going on when you played. And Nsilo, you and I, we talked about it. We reminisced. We were teammates a few years in AAU. Me, you, Brett Harper, Jonathan Baker. We took this little Scooby-Doo van all the way to Indianapolis to play at Nationals.
Oh man!
And I tried to recruit Nsilo on the football field. But before we get into all of that, I'm just going to go around. Let's talk about how you guys got into sports and the influence your parents had on you, because everyone knows that follows you guys' career knows about what you accomplished on the high school and collegiate level and things like that, and even and beyond that. But let's take it back to when you were growing up, when you guys got to Hampton 757. Who got you guys in it and the influence? Because I know about your father, but I want to hear you guys talk about. Taj, I'll start with you.
Well, I guess when we first got to the States, we left the Virgin Islands where we're from in 1989 because of a hurricane. We had two cousins in the Hampton area that were already going to Kecoughtan. So as we were about to walk into this school, they had already, hyped everybody up and said, "Oh my God, my cousins are coming. They're ginormous. They're like 6'5" and da da da." And so right off the bat, coaches were excited. So the first day we walked into Kecoughtan, there were actually all the coaches in the office waiting to see if we were these, baby avatars that our cousins hyped up us to be coming in. And so, of course, we were. And I think I was the biggest shock because a girl 6'2" is like, what? So,
yes, yeah.
And so that kind of, it started from that moment. I mean, they were in the office talking about, have you guys played sports? You need to really come out. We think you'd be great. And da, 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 da. And so for me, coming into a new school, that was a really inspirational, exciting moment to begin high school in the States.
Yeah. Faz.
Yeah, I remember that experience. All the coaches in the front office, everybody looking at you, and you just coming off the island. We're all from St. Croix, so it's kind of like everybody in our face, and we kind of just, the football coach is asking, "Hey, you play football?" The swim coach is, "Hey, do you swim? Do you play? Do you play volleyball? What do you do? And we would just, just hey, we're here. We're just trying to figure out, how we're gonna figure out the school situation, because we were going to be out of school for a year because of the Hurricane Hugo, and it was an exciting time for us, but very nervous. We didn't have anything coming. We didn't have any clothes. We didn't have a lot of things to ground us, but we did have family, and so that's what kept us in, kept our spirits up and whatnot. But basketball was something that was introduced to us, from my dad, and him playing at St. John's University. Some of his friends that we hung around in the island started off for us, and so that was an experience for us. Our first time coming to the school, like Taj was talking about, just being introduced to all the different coaches that we came across. That was trying to get in our heads to find out what we're going to do next,
Yeah. And now, Nsilo, what do you remember, man? Because I'm listening to Taj and Faisal talk. It's crazy because y'all came from the beautiful Virgin Islands to Hampton. Yeah. So what do you remember about it, man?
So what they fail to tell you is that, for me, my number one hobby was spearfishing. I grew up shooting fish, spearfishing, and basketball was like second hobby, I remember skipping school, just to go spearfishing, waiting for that Saturday morning when the waters are nice and calm to go out in the boat, me and Five, always going out spearfishing and catching fish and providing for the family and stuff like that. But when the hurricane hit, we had to transition. And I remember my dad saying, do y'all want to move to New York or do y'all want to move to Hampton? So for us, it's like, New York would be a culture shock to us, yeah, right? So we said, all right, let's go to Hampton. That's where our family was at, down in Hampton. And I do recall going there. You know, me, I was on the heavier side, so of course they were recruiting me left and right for football, you know. And I was like, I never really played football. I was more of a basketball player, you know. And so I just remember being in school. I remember, I think when I got to the States, I was in the 7th grade. So that's when I first met, you know, Brett Harper and a few of the guys and stuff like that. But, you know, for me, I was in middle school. So for Thigh and Taj, they were in high school already. So, yeah, they were getting pressure. For me, the pressure wasn't there just quite yet. But once I got to high school, it was on.
Yeah, and, you know, I remember when I met you, and I know you have stories about me, but I saw you, I was like, oh, my goodness, I got to get you on the field. And you saw he was like, in practice, he was like, nah, man, that ain't my thing. I'm like, man, you would get a scholarship. You know, I was just trying to get him out there. But Nas was like, nah, I'm good, man. You know, he said, y'all football players crazy.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, man, y'all gonna go out there in my career the first time I get on that field. I remember Morocco Brown kept on hounding me left and right, man, come on to the field. You know, Coach Conrad and what's his name? Coach Newsom was out there just trying to hound me left and right, trying to get me on the field. And I was just like, and I actually tried it for a little bit, you know. And then I found out, I was like, you know what, I'm going to stick to basketball because this is my call, you know.
Yeah. So let's talk about basketball. So, Taj, I'll start with you. I remember seeing you, and the first moment I saw you hoop, I said, oh, yeah, she's that deal. When did you know, when you got here to the States and you got to Hampton, was it automatic for you? Did you have any AAU experience? You know, did you know you were one of the better players, or did it just come to you later?
You know, I have to be honest. It was like that touch of God moment, because when I first got to the States, I didn't play basketball in the Virgin Islands. I played volleyball. And when I got to the States and Coach McCormick was trying to teach me the sport of basketball, I remember this coach, Dwight, he said to me, when you go in the paint, I need you to stand up and put your arms up and don't let people shoot. And I said, okay. He said, just put your arms up. So I'm literally, as people come into the paint, I'm standing like a statue. And they're like, well, you got to move your feet a little bit. And I'm like, you didn't say that. You just said, go down there and stand up. And so when I told you, I was so methodical with every instruction because it just wasn't a natural sport for me my first year. Now, my curve for improvement was you know, quick. It was, I was improving like every month you saw an improvement in my game according to my coaches. And so obviously by that summer after my freshman year, that's when Boo caught my eye, Boo Williams. And that summer was a big summer for me because it was eye-opening. You know, when you're in your district, you kind of thought you were doing something special. And then when you see the collaboration of all the best players, and I think you talked about this on one of your former shows, you didn't have 80 AAU teams.
No.
So you had the A team and the B team. And the A team was basically all juniors. I mean, it was basically just all juniors, maybe some seniors. And so to be on that team as a rising sophomore was huge. You know, it was huge. Lakeisha Frett and I were the only two rising sophomores that were invited to that team that year. And I just remember seeing the top of the food chain of the 757, these girls, I mean, the way they played, their movement, it was just such next level. And I mean, I probably play, I'm not even being funny, Dwight. I would get like 50 seconds a game. I would get like a minute. I remember these things, a minute and 4 seconds. And I got 48 seconds. And I'm like, ooh, I got 2 whole minutes this game. Because these girls were so good that I knew I was just happy to be there. You know, I'm just happy to be on this team. And whatever happened, the click that went from that fall to that winter of my sophomore year was just a huge jump. I just remember playing the game and it started to seem so simple to me. I wasn't the robot. I was able to move more fluidly. I began to understand how to score, how to defend. really understanding what a post is, what a guard is. I mean, I was really starting to understand how each person is utilized on the floor. But that aha moment probably came in that fall and into my winter of my sophomore year. So no, it wasn't easy. It wasn't. It was a transition.
And you know, it's crazy. I'm just listening to you talk because your jersey's hanging in Blue Winds, right? It's hanging in the Raptors. And that process you went through is not the norm now. Like, if a kid now, female or male, is only getting a minute or 50 seconds, we're going to see it on Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram. Their parents going to post on Facebook, love don't live here no more. You know what I mean? So the patience you had is remarkable because, I mean, you and Keisha Fred and you guys that know sports, this is a compliment, were dogs. You know what I'm saying? Y'all were go-getters, and yet you had the patience to wait your turn and learn from the other ladies, you know, on that team. Faisal, when did that aha moment, when did you know? Because I remember watching you play, you know, you're a little bit older than me, but we all grew up together, seeing you play. And you and Vershawn Ely during those Kecoughtan teams, I mean, you guys looked illegal. I remember you used to rock the headband on your arm. So if you look at a headband, that is like, you know, a head. And I'm looking at, I'm like, yo, this guy looks illegal. But yet, you're humble. So when did that know? Like, did you? Because I know you played on the team with Tony and Damon, but before that, did you know you were worthy or that good to be on that Boo team? And I know if you saw my show, Tony and Damon, I really feel like that to this day is still arguably one of the best 17U teams in Boo Williams AAU, not just Boo AAU history. Did you know? Or when did that moment come for you?
So let me rewind a little bit. Before I even got in the game of basketball, I was, like Nasi said, we used to go out spearfishing a lot. Coming from the islands, we didn't play much basketball. My dad took us to, like, you know, some of the high school. There was one high school in particular in the Virgin Islands called, Central High School. And he took us to a couple of those practices with the high school boys, and they were a lot bigger, stronger, and I was real scrawny and skinny. And, you know, I went up to one of those conditioning workouts, and man, let me tell you, that was the last time I wanted to go. You know, I wanted to get right back to the beach, you know, get back on the, you know, in relaxation mode. I did not want to do a lot of those things. So I kind of was dabbling in the basketball at that time, but I didn't really take it seriously until I got up to Hampton. And I think that's when, you know, I finally got on a team that it was installed into me that, you know, I was going to be playing basketball. I thought about football, but I saw you guys out there and these big guys, you know, I don't know what they were eating. I was like, these guys on high school? What in the world? I'm like, no, I ain't playing football. Let me stay inside. And to add to that, the practices outdoors was like, you know, you had guys out there for 3 hours in the hot heat. And I said, man, I'm going right back to the gym where it's air conditioning. Practices ain't too long. No. So, but my years in high school, Tony Jordan had, you know, he was a great help in you know, introducing to the school, to the basketball team, the program. And I think at that moment, hanging out with him and some of the other guys, Lawrence Lewis and some other guys, I kind of, you know, I was like, you know, let me try basketball and see if it works out for me. Because at the time, I was still trying to do the swimming thing. I was on the swim team in the Virgin Islands national team, and I wanted to go swimming. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to play basketball. And they told me, hey, you know, brothers out there playing, you know, swimming, you know, hey, get in the basketball court. Let's do what we need to do, you know. And at the time, I didn't have much experience in basketball. I didn't, you know, train like a lot of these kids do these days, you know, hours and hours of ball handling and this and that. I had basically my height to go on, and, you know, and I pretty much started from that. Like Taj's experience, you know, stand in the middle, see if you can, you know, don't let anybody in the paint, block shots, get rebounds. And that's where I started off at, you know, my sophomore year. And I got a little more playing time my freshman year because they ended up starting me. And it was kind of a good experience because I got to play with my brother Ramadan. And so it was the first time for me to experience that type of, environment. And I think that kind of, I met Coach Conrad, and he looked at me. When he looked at me, it was like, glitter in his eyes, like, you're going to be the guy, we need you to do all these things, and you're going to be great. And he just installed that into my head, and I just started believing, maybe I'm good. Let me try to start doing a lot of these things that he's implementing or wanting me to do. And turns out I had a good career with it. And, so I think it was a combination of Tony Jordan and some of my other teammates that, influenced me at the time with basketball to get me into loving basketball.
Absolutely. And Nas, what about you? When was that moment for you?
Oh man, that moment came a little while after, because I remember when I first started playing, man, I thought I was some trash, okay? I watched videos of some of the games my father used to record, and I was like, oh my goodness, right? So I really was like in the process of like, man, is this the sport for me? I'm like, I don't want to do football. And I'm like, right now, basketball is like, I like the sport, but right now I'm not looking as good as some of my opponents that I'm playing against, right? So I remember in my 8th grade year, going to my 9th grade year, I was, starting to feel my way a little bit to start, getting in with Boo, starting our team, started traveling, and really started to get more experience, under my belt. And then I started really learning the post game, and then following after Taj and Phi and watching them, how they play. And so I try to incorporate, my game style based on their game style, because I kind of like Hakeem Olajuwon when he played. And so my sister kind of played that type of ball game. And I like Charles Barkley, that powerhouse, and Phi used to play like the powerhouse. So I try to mix my game with the finesse and the power at the same time. So overall, towards the end, it really started clicking my sophomore and my junior year. And that's really when I knew that, hey, I'm going to be really good at this sport,
Yeah. And, it's crazy because being that we won a couple of teams together, a couple of AAU seasons, I tell people all the time, man, you see Boo Williams is the Mecca. I mentioned this in my other show with Tony and Damon. The Boo Williams facility, my son, a lot of kids across the country love playing there. But I remember Boo had like one court over by Eaton when it was dedicated. Other than that, he was looking for gym space just like me. Yep. And in a lot of ways, the Abraham family, along with the Iverson, the Damon Bakos, and the other guys, Taj, you and Lakeisha Fred, you guys, were part of the legacy that Boo has now, along with Alonzo Mourning and Kevin Swan. All those people, when you go into the Mecca of Boo Williams and you see those jerseys hanging, you guys were part of that. And yet you're so humble. But before Boo Williams, or along that same time, what was beginning to change in our area was the Penninsula District basketball, because you saw the summer league begin to be packed, and you saw girls and boys basketball games begin to get packed. It was always competitive even before you guys moved there, but that time frame with all the names and people that were there, it began to become household names everywhere. Let's talk a little bit about that, the Penninsula District time, because I'll start with you, Taj, because you are a lot like my cousin Mike, where Mike was a dynamic player and he was overshadowed by Ronald Curry. And Taj, you were really good, but you played the same time frame as Keisha Fred and those Ray Phoebus teams. And I remember playing JV in high school. I don't remember if it was against Hampton or coming in the gym, but I remember Phoebus girls were playing, and it was his third quarter, and they were up 87-3. And this is before all that Mercer rule, running clock, and Keisha Fred and them on the court, and she got her curl and it's wet and she crossing people up, and she's giving people. I'm not even gonna say the way we used to say back in the day as far as she played like a dude. No, she played because she was a great player like Taj. I don't do that whole play like a guy. She was a baller. But Taj, talk about being part of those legacies. You talked about Boo, but like the Penninsula District, your career and how great you were, and what battles do you remember, your teams, your coaches? Just how was it like to play during that time frame?
It was great. There was always like a player or two from each team that you knew you had to, they didn't necessarily play your position, but you knew that if you didn't do your job, you knew she was coming to do her job. You know, and Lakeisha Fret was one from Phoebus. You knew every day she was coming to do her job. You had Daniel Dawson over at Menchville.
Yes.
You knew she was coming to do her job, and Daniel was nothing but silky out there.
Yes.
And, you know, you had Patty Dixon, who was also at Menchville, that used to do her thing. And so you just knew that when you stepped on that floor, you had to bring it, because every team had that marquee kid that you had to go against. And Phoebus was obviously the most unique of them all, because they always had several marquees on their team, as well as just being a team that was coached so very well by Mike Talon. I mean, they were a force to reckon with.
Yes.
You know, your goal was, how many times can you get the ball over half court with Phoebus? You didn't even necessarily, it wasn't even the basket. It was just, could you get it over half court, because they pressed you 90 feet. They were athletic, they were active. It was just such a great team. And so, you know, those are two games you always had circled on your calendar, not necessarily to win, but just to, God, let me get through it, because it's going to be tough playing this team and you got to play them twice. But so trust me, it was always so great when I could have Lakeisha Fret on my team with Boo. We played two different positions. She was a wing and I was an inside player. But it was so nice to be able to have her on the floor. And we would talk about that all the time in the hotel, because we were roommates a lot. And I would just say, you ain't had to do us like that, you know. And she's such an introvert, and she's so cool, and she's so laid back. And, and so, you know, but and that was the difference. I think in those days, you could compete with somebody on one level and then go to battle with them on another level, because you had so much respect for that person stepping on the floor.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times I think that the respect of players and what they bring to the game is lost. And so, again, those were the battles, and you had to bring it. You had to bring it.
Yeah, and like I said, I just remember, like you mentioned, in the Menchville teams. I mean, Dawson she was a beast. She was a savage. I mean, that's why I always say that's the golden era. And it's nothing against the kids there now, or the PD, or even the region. It's just more so things change, they evolve, or they get better, or they don't stay the same. And I think that era was so special during that time frame, because the competition level was so high. So many great players went on to different things, even outside of basketball. Faisal, you played with some great teams and some great players. You mentioned Morocco Brown, who's working in the NFL right now, Spider, Rashawn Ely. I mean, I remember he transferred there, and we were like, how they get him? You know, and there's a game I showed my son when y'all played Bethel, Tony and Iverson, and it was packed. And that team, the Kecoughtan team, was really good. Tony Jordan, you know, back when guys played multiple sports, I mean, he was football, basketball, and baseball, correct? Like Morocco? Yeah. And he was a phenomenal point guard. Talk about what it was like to play for Coach Conrad, those battles with Hampton against Mario and Jermaine Golson and all those guys. How were those battles? I mean, because, again, I can go on, you know, against I remember against Phoebus, they had a guy by the name C.L. Noble. Remember? Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, yep. I'm taking you back. Ferguson had Antoine Smith, Alonzo Darden, Aaron Brooks. Again, multiple sport athletes, but the basketball side, it was stacked. There was no night off. So what were your memories, man?
So let me let you know about Rashawn Ely and how we acquired Rashawn. So, you know, obviously Boo Williams, we played with Boo Williams in the summertime. And like I said, an experience with playing with Boo Williams, AAU, was unbelievable. You get to play against these guys, you know, in high school all the time. And then you actually see all the big superstars for each team on your AAU team. And now you get to, like, you know, find out about them, you know, their likes, dislikes, how do they, you know, play against you? What do they feel? You know, all that kind of stuff. And so me and Rashawn became good friends during our time with Boo Williams. And we ended up, you know, discussing, as most, you know, a lot of the kids, you know, a lot of guys, I was actually trying to go to Bethel to play with, you know, I thought about it, but anyway, I wanted to stay loyal to the Kecoughtan. But, you know, we always talked about what our experience, where we were going to go the following year and so forth. And talking to Rashawn, he was like, you know, I'm thinking about moving, you know, to that area. what do you think about this? Okay, I said, hey man, you need to go to Kecoughtan. We got a team already, but we're going to have a real good team if we acquire you. And so coming into the upcoming year, or my senior year, we acquired for Sean. We had Macy Brooks.
Macy, yes, yeah.
We had Chris Taylor, Morocco Brown, and Larry. We had a lot of guys on the team that we had a complete team. And when I say complete, we had, I think most of the time when we played against other teams, we would blow them out. Majority of the reasons because of our height, size that we brought to the table. I was 6'6" at the time. Rashawn Ely was 6'9". Tony Jordan was like 6'4". Macy was like 6'4". So we had a real tall team. Our biggest rivals were Hampton, going against Damon Baycoat and Mario, all those guys, Jermaine Golson. It was a packed house every time we played against a lot of these teams. I remember playing against Bethel. Anytime we played against Bethel, it was like, fireworks, man. We would just, I remember all through high school, I was looking forward to the competition. Are you guys think you're gonna, play against the Southmore sensation, Allen Iverson and Tony Rutland, killing in threes? And I said, hey man, they too little for us, we got them. They don't got nobody, they ain't got no size, And so it was a story of David versus Goliath when we played against them. And I remember playing with them in AAU, but it was just like, these guys were on my team, but playing against them, it was a different level of respect because the first time I tried to throw a ball to my point guard or whatever, there I see Allen Iverson or Tony Rutland stealing the ball. Like, how the hell did they get there that fast, And so the amount of respect that I had for that team, we know they had weapons on the outside. We had weapons on the inside. And it was a great game. The games could have went either way anytime we played against them because I know we were like close games every time. But it was good times. I mean, we had, like you said, Antoine Ferguson. I remember playing against him, and Alonzo Darden. And I remember this guy tried to dunk on me. Antoine Ferguson tried to dunk on me. I think he was a freshman at the time. And I'm like, or a sophomore. I'm like, is this kid just trying to dunk on me? Because this is the first time I'm seeing somebody with athletic ability as myself that can, try to dunk. And for myself playing, it was, I didn't have too much of a skill level. I had enough to get by, but I utilized a lot of my strength and my height and my athletic ability to get around people. And for me, I wanted to get the high percentage shots. So my thing was try to dunk everything. And so if you were standing in the way, I would try to dunk.
Yeah.
If you were coming in. And so that was my game, and, it was funny because, playing AAU with Allen Iverson and Tony Rutland, Damon Baycoat, Michael Sharp,
Jay Clark,
Tariq Turner, and a lot of those guys, it was like, we went out and for me to get ready for games, I remember getting ready for games. I had people doing push-ups, they would see me do 20, 30 push-ups before a game. And I had the whole team doing these push-ups before. I said, you guys don't need to do this. Your game is other, let me do this because I need to rely on my strength. And so that was part of my game. But I just remember all the fans and support through the Hampton Roads area that hyped us up, hyped me up. And that was a great memory for me to experience, especially down the stretch when we were competing for state, going against Joe Smith and Maury. I don't know if you remember Michael Evans at Booker T.
Oh,
Washington.
Of course I remember Michael Evans, absolutely.
Yeah,
yes,
and I remember Allen Iverson, Tariq Turner, and those guys when we were playing AAU together, trying to, bring their game up to Michael Evans' standard,
He sure
was one
did.
of those, yep. And so he had this crazy crossover, that I used to be like, wow, and I used to see Allen Iverson and Tariq Turner try to, do that same thing that he was doing. And at the time, I think he was an All-American, and we were younger. We had Tony Rutland and the younger guys, Dan Baycoat and so forth, and we were playing up. We had a 1700 team. We were playing up to the 1800 team, and then the 1800 team They had Ed Geth, Ace Custis. I remember all of those guys. Those guys, you know, ended up going to North Carolina, Virginia Tech. You know, we had a great team then, and we lost to some games. But our upcoming team, the last team I played on with was with Joe Smith and myself, Damian Bako, Tweak Turner, Tony Rutland, and those guys. But we had a great experience. I ended up playing about 2 years in AAU. But going off tangent, I could talk all day about basketball. But
that's okay, yeah.
Yeah, going back to the high school days, I mean, it was just a great competitive atmosphere. You know, like I said, everybody had somebody on their team that was lethal, and we had to prepare for every game. Even though senior year we went 26-2, I don't think we lost the game until it came to state finals against Highland Springs. But it was an intense atmosphere. I remember going to Churchland, you know, playing against, it was a sellout crowd, standing room only on the courts.
I was there.
It was a great time, you know, and so I miss those days, but, you know, it was something to remember.
And you know, what's crazy about that, and before I get to you, Nas, what's crazy about that is the competition of all those guys you named on AAU, and then when it got back to the districts and to the region, you elevated the play in the conference in the district, and then you had to go across the water where basketball was already big with Norfolk and Chesapeake and those and Portsmouth and Churchland. We talk about Boo Williams, his complex down in Hampton, but Churchland was that. I always remember you walk in the popcorn to smell the lines around the corner if you didn't get there on time, and just seeing you guys battle. And what you and your sister Nas mentioned is what you guys did before he got to Kecoughtan elevated the expectations for the guys behind him. And so Nas, when you look at your career, I remember coming back home, y'all went to state, y'all had a squad, and the expectation was there because of what your brother and Tony Jordan and Morocco and those guys did. So talk about what it was like to play, because you were there during, obviously you played with Brett and Marseille Brown, and to me, along with Tony and Chuck, a.k.a. Iverson, one of the best backcourts of all time. I mean, even now. So how was it for you and during that time?
Oh man, that time was awesome, and I keep thinking back on it, and I keep remembering how much fun we had. You know, it's like the legacies continue. You know, like when Morocco left, Marseille came into play. You know, when Fi and Taj left, you know, then I came into play. You know, and we had to keep that legacy at Kecoughtan going. You know what I mean? But for me, it's like growing up. You know, Hampton, your school used to be my rival. You know what I mean? Because all these cats played with me on AAU. You know, I had Jonathan Baker, I had Tavian, Bryce, who else? Jason Gadd. So we had all them cats on my AAU team, you know. And it was like, for us, when we played, we traveled. You know, Boo took us here and there and all over the place. And every time when we had to play against each other during the school time, man, it was on. You know, we used to talk smack, shake each other's hand, and then it was on. You know, and those times were awesome, man. And like if I was talking about playing against the different schools like Bethel and Ferguson, I remember them cats. I remember playing against Antoine Smith and Aaron Brooks. And I remember playing against Tony Rutland, playing against Iverson, because Iverson was there my senior year, you know, before he left. Not my senior, but my junior year before he left. So, and I actually rode with him sometimes. Google sometimes pulled me along with them just to go on a road trip with, you know, that crew, with the 5 players. So, I mean, and just to get the experience, you know, not like I got that much playing time during that time, but he put me in. If somebody was get hurt, you know, I was there to back him up. But just playing that era and just trying to live up to the expectations, for me, it wasn't really that hard because my game was like, okay, let me try to improve every year. What can I work on? You know, I had great coaches like Malone Brown that came in to help out with Kecoughtan, the coach with Coach Conrad. And, you know, his wisdom was awesome, you know. But before then, you know, playing with Coach Hall, you know, working our way up, it was awesome. Playing with 2-star backcourt players like Brett and Marseille. You know, it was like, I wonder how Coach Conrad was like, hey, get the ball around everybody. It was kind of hard because we had a stacked team. Like I was saying, his team was stacked, our team was stacked. You know, we had Brett, Marseille, we had Spider, you know, we had, oh my goodness, Doug Bird, we had, Baraka play. You know, I'm sorry if I'm missing out on a whole bunch of other players, but man, it was so many from my sophomore year all the way to my junior year. I mean, not junior, but my senior year, where we pretty much started dominating and started coming across tough players. I remember you talking about what's that cat name that you were just talking about? Ronald Curry.
Ronald Curry.
And, he started taking over the scenery, but you know, it used to be a rival when we played, you know, against Ronald Curry. So, and then, like you said, going across over to the water to Indian River, Churchland. And I remember my boy Marvin and Roger. You know, Marvin, I tell you, that boy, you can get to talk to him one time, man. He'll get some stories for you. We had a great time together. It was awesome. The road to where I experienced from going from being a trash player to being you know, in the newspaper every other weekend, you know, or every weekend, I should say. I mean, it was an amazing ride, and I give my sister and my brother all the props because I looked up to them when they played, and I learned a lot from them when they played, and just how to stay humble, you know. Don't do no trash talking on the court that you can't do the talking. That was my motto. That's what I teach my kids, you know.
Yeah,